Hello everyone, my name is Abhishek and welcome back to my channel. Today is episode 7 of Ansible Zero to Hero series. For the people who are new, we are doing a 14 episode Ansible Zero to Hero series. You can find the complete course syllabus in this GitHub repository. We have already completed the first 6 episodes of this series and today is day 7. So what are we going to do in day 7? So in day 7, we are actually going to do a Ansible real-time project. Actually, this is an assignment that is given as part of an interview to one of our subscribers in round 2. So I thought we will take up this same exercise and we will try to perform this during today's class. And while performing these 3 tasks, we will also learn about Ansible loops and Ansible conditionals. So these are the 2 topics as provided in the course syllabus. We will be learning about conditionals in Ansible. We will be learning about loops to perform repetitive tasks. And as I have explained during the course syllabus, we will do a practical demonstration. That is what we are going to do as part of this assignment. So this assignment has 3 tasks. Task 1 is to create 3 EC2 instances. So we are not going to create 1, we are going to create 3. So we are going to use the concept of Ansible loops, where 2 instances will be of Ubuntu distribution and 1 instance will be of CentOS distribution. So we will create 3 instances. And there is also a hint that is provided to use connection of type local on the Ansible control node. What is it? I'll be explaining. Task 2 is to set up a passwordless authentication. We have created 3 instances here, right? So these 3 instances that we have created, we will be using them as Ansible manage nodes, and using our laptop, which will be the control node, we will set up passwordless authentication, because the task 3 is to automate shutdown of Ubuntu instances that we have created as part of this task. To make it more AWS friendly, instead of using CentOS distribution, let's use AWS Linux, because when you are working on AWS, it's one of the preferred choice. Ubuntu is also one of the preferred one. So let's use Ubuntu and AWS Linux. If you want, you can use Red Hat, you can use Debian, Alpine, any distribution, the steps will be the same. But just to make it AWS friendly, let's create 2 instances of Ubuntu and 1 instance of type AWS Linux. Okay, so let me also draw this and explain very quickly what are the 3 tasks that we are going to do. Again, task 1 will be to use Ansible control node, where the control node will be our laptop, which has Ansible installed already. If you haven't installed already Ansible, you can follow the day 1 episode and learn how to install Ansible. And using the Ansible that we have installed, first task that we will do is provisioning. So I explained you in the previous classes, Ansible can be used for provisioning. Ansible can be used for configuration management. Ansible can be used for network appliances automation. In step 1, we will be using Ansible for provisioning. And where are we going to provision the resources? We are going to provision on AWS. AWS is a control plane. AWS is a IaaS platform. So here you cannot connect Ansible with AWS using SSH, right? Because it's not a server. AWS is a IaaS platform or the PaaS platform. So what you need to do, you need to use Ansible AWS Collection, and in the Ansible AWS Collection, you will have a module for EC2. we will be using that module, and that module will be run on the control node. So usual practice is that if you are using Ansible for configuration management, you will connect to your managed node or the server, and you will SSH to that machine and execute the Ansible module on that machine. But here we are doing provisioning. You cannot SSH to AWS. So we will use connection type as local, and we will run the module on the Ansible control node itself. This module, which is a Python module using Boto3, it will connect to the AWS API, and it will provision the EC2 instances for us. So this is task 1. Task 2 that is given to us is to set up passwordless authentication. So task 2 is actually a prerequisite for task 3. In task 3, we are going to use Ansible for configuration management. What we are going to do in task 3, we are actually going to write a configuration management task, which is to automate the shutdown. So we are going to shut down the EC2 instances. Maybe the requirement is that towards the end of the day, or once your customers are not using the EC2 instances, you want to write an Ansible playbook. And when that Ansible playbook is run, it will shut down not required EC2 instances or the EC2 instances that are unused. So for that, you need to set up passwordless authentication first. So task 2, we will take these 3 EC2 instances that we have created, 2 of type Ubuntu, 1 of type AWS Linux. And what we are going to do is we will use the SSH based passwordless authentication using the PEM file. I can also show you using the password. Let's see if you want to do 2 instances with PEM file and 1 instance with password, we can do anything. So we will set up that in task 2. In task 3, we will write Ansible playbook or an Ansible role. And in this Ansible playbook or role, we will write the task to shut down the EC2 instances that we have created. So these will be the 3 tasks that we are going to do in today's video. So let's start with the AWS account, because we need to create a IAM user. If Ansible has to talk to the APIs of the AWS, you need authentication to connect to AWS. Boto3 modules need to talk to the AWS API. For that, we will create a IAM user, and we will provide the access token and secret key to the Ansible. So I'm on my AWS console. Let's go to the IAM service. And within the IAM service, click on the users. Let's create a user. Let's call it as Ansible user. Provide user access to the AWS management console. It's not required. Add user to group, copy permissions, attach policies directly. Let's attach the policies directly. Let's search for EC2. Okay, these are all EC2. Let me grant EC2 full access to it. Okay, perfect. But if you want to fine tune and give the required permissions, you can do that as well. Okay, I have granted Ansible user with the permissions. This is a IAM user. Security credentials, go here. And what you will do is create access key. Application running outside AWS. Okay, there are some alternatives that it also recommends. Create access key. So I've got the access key and I've also got the secret access key. Copy it somewhere because we will need it when we are going to write the Ansible playbook. Okay, I got this information. Now let me take my Visual Studio Code. And if you are new to Visual Studio Code and if you haven't followed our previous videos, let me quickly tell you, you need two extensions. One is you need the YAML extension by Red Hat. Install it so that you can write better YAML files, or you can write YAML files easily. Second is have this extension called Ansible, again provided by Red Hat. This will help you with auto suggestions. You can see while I'm writing. Let's create a new folder. Let me call it as Day-7, because I'm going to commit these playbooks that I'm going to write to the GitHub repository. So if any of you are stuck, you can reference this and you can start using it. Okay, I've created a folder called Day-7. I already have a IAM user. What are the things that are required? Any more prerequisites? Yes, there are some more prerequisites. If you go to Day-6 folder, you have a file called prereq.md. First, you need to install Boto3. Our followers who are following the videos in order, they already have all of these installed because in Day-6 we have done this, but I'm going to explain step by step. Just run pip install Boto3. You need to have Ansible installed, of course. Then install Boto3. Then you need to have this collection, amazon.aws. Next thing is to set up Vault. So why are we setting up Vault? Whenever you are dealing with Ansible, when you have some sensitive information like the API tokens or the passwords or TLS files, any secure templates, you need to make sure that you put them in the Vault. Ansible Vault is very simple and straightforward. It comes with the out-of-the-box Ansible installation. You can just put the files in the Ansible Vault, protect it with a password, and you can use them in your Ansible playbooks. So first, let's try to protect it with a password. So we will create a base64 encoded one. So first step is to create a OpenSSL file, which is base64 encoded. Okay, I have it. You can use any encryption methods. I'm just using a very basic one, base64 encoded. And now what I'm going to do is I'll not be editing. First, I have to create. So Ansible Vault. Within the Ansible Vault, I'm going to create a file which is called pass.yaml or password.yaml, whatever you want to name it. And I'm protecting the data in the password.yaml using the encoded base64 file that I have created. So anybody who wants to access this, they need to have this base64 encoded file. Otherwise, they cannot access it. So first, let's create this. And within this, let's try to store our access key and secret access key. So let's call this as EC2 underscore access underscore key. Copy it. And let's call this EC2 underscore secret underscore key. This is sensitive. You should not share this with anyone. So I'm going to pause this here. Okay, I added my secret key as well, and I've saved the file. Now I have the AWS API keys to access AWS and create EC2 instances. Now my Ansible can talk to the AWS APIs because we have given the IAM user permissions to create EC2 instances. With this IAM user, if you try to create S3 bucket, Ansible cannot do that because we just granted EC2 instance permission. Okay, now what else do we need to do? So let's start with creating a file. Let's call it as EC2 underscore create.yaml. So we are writing our playbook file. Start with 3 hyphens. Always write the host. In this case, the host will be localhost. Why? Because as I've explained in the beginning of this video, what we are doing is we are executing the Ansible module on the control node itself because it's a provisioning task. You cannot SSH to AWS. So we will set the connection type as local, and we will also say the host as local. So connection local. Now we can start writing the task, but how to write it? Let's say you don't know how to use this AWS collection, or you don't remember the syntax. It's totally fine. Just go to Google, search for Ansible AWS collection, and because we have already installed the Ansible AWS collection in the prerequisite section, just scroll down, search for what module you want to use. I want to use EC2 Instance module. If you don't understand what is collection, what is module, please watch the previous video. I have explained very clearly. Here I have the EC2 module, and you have plenty of examples. For example, this was the one which we picked up in the day 6 where I've created an EC2 instance, or you can directly go to the day 6 folder as well and search for the playbook.yaml. Anything is exactly the same. So let me take it from here. From the task, I'll just copy. Perfect. So in the task, I just have one task, create EC2 instances. Of course, the one that we have written here, it will create only one EC2 instance for us. We will improvise this code. But first, let's see what are the fields inside this. I said name as Ansible instance, but each EC2 instance should have a different name. So this is one thing that we need to change. For 3 EC2 instances, we need to create 3 different names. Key name, definitely I need it because I want to set up passwordless authentication in the next step. So let's use a key name that I already have on the AWS account. If you don't have a key name, I think you already know how to create it. Just go to the key pair section and create a new one. But I already have, so let me use this. I'll call this as Abhi key pair. I'll use the default VPC, so I don't need this particular section. Instance type, I want to use T2 micro only. Security group, default. Region, let me use AP South 1 because it's the nearest region for me. Pick up whatever is the near region for you. AWS access key and secret key. Make sure the naming convention is the exact same thing that you put in Ansible Vault. Beginning of the video, we put the access key and secret key in Ansible Vault, right? You need to have these names exactly same. If you want to search, use the edit command. If you are not sure what is the name that you have provided, so you can just use this command, Ansible Vault, edit, wherever is the file that you have the sensitive information, followed by the password file that you need to use for the decryption. So you need to use this command. It's also there in the day 6 folder. You can use that command from the MD file. Okay, network, assign public IP. I need public IP for sure. Image ID, again, this is the thing that will change. For 2 Ubuntu instances, it will be the same. When it comes to Amazon Linux, this will change. Tags I don't need, so let me remove this. So I have 2 things that need to vary. What I can simply do is I can just copy this task, put this 3 times, right? This will also solve my purpose. And here I will say Ansible instance. I'll say Ansible instance 1. I'll say Ansible instance 2. And similarly, I will also update the AMI IDs. But the problem with this approach is I am not doing a standard programming. In any programming language, you have the concept called as loops. Even in Ansible, you have loops where you can eliminate repetitive task. So instead of writing the same thing 3 times, I just need to use the name as well as image ID in loop. If you just want to use one particular thing, what you can simply do is you can put loop. Okay. And within the loop, you can just say image ID, for example. Okay. I'll say image ID 1, image ID 2. This is the syntax. That's it. And I will say image ID 3. I'll copy these image IDs. How can I get them? Again, just go to your EC2 section, EC2 dashboard, search for the instances, click on the launch instance. And here what you can do, Amazon Linux. So you get the AMI ID here. So first instance that I'll create is Amazon Linux. Then let me pick up Ubuntu. Here, copy the AMI ID and copy the AMI ID. Perfect. Now, what happens here is you are writing a loop, and this loop is iterating this particular task. I mean, it will perform this particular task 3 times, and each time it will use the items that you have provided. So for this item, it will execute this task once. For this item, it will execute this task 2nd time. And for this item, it will execute this task 3rd time. But where will it replace this AMI ID? Wherever it has to replace, just go to that particular point. Inside the double quote, use 2 double curly brackets, which is for the Ginger 2 templating, and just write item. Now this loop will understand that it has to take the AMI ID, replace the item with it, and execute this task. Again, 2nd time, replace with it and execute. 3rd time, replace with it and execute. Now this is the tricky part of this question, which the interviewer has given. If you execute this, what happens is only 2 instances get created. If you want to try, you can pause the video here and you can run the command Ansible Playbook followed by the playbook name and the decryption key. It will only create 2 instances. Why? This is the interesting part. Or let me show you, because some people might have question. So this is the command Ansible Playbook EC2 create.yaml followed by the decryption key for this particular secure information. I explained Vault very clearly in the last video. That's why I'm not spending a lot of time. Create EC2 instance, gather facts is done. I'll explain about gather facts also, because I'm going to use it for the conditioning part in this video. Okay, it said OK2 changed 1. Let's see how many instances got created. If we go to the instances section, just let me refresh. We just need the running instances. Let me just select state as running. You will see 2 instances got created. Now this is the tricky part, like I've explained in the interview. The reason why interviewer said 2 of your instances, right? If you look at the question carefully, 2 of the instances has to be of the type Ubuntu. It is done purposefully because interviewer is trying to understand if you know the idempotency nature of Ansible or not. So there is a difference between using shell scripts and using Ansible. That is, Ansible comes with idempotency. What does that mean? That means if you are running same thing with Ansible 2 times, First time Ansible will execute it. Second time Ansible will not execute it, saying that the same state is already available on the target. If you compare this with shell scripting, let's say in your shell script, you run this command, touch abhi, which is basically used to create a file called abhi. You run it first time, shell script will create a file called abhi. Run it second time, again shell script will try to create a file called abhi, and your shell command will fail, saying that file already exists. But this is not the case in Ansible. Ansible has a feature called as idempotency, where if you try to create the file for the first time, it will create. Second time, it will not fail. It will simply ignore the task because the file is already available on the target. It did the same thing. Here, it created the first EC2 instance with this AMI ID. Everything is exactly the same, right? The instance name is the same, key name is the same. So when it is taking the second AMI ID, it did not find any difference. It said, you are asking me to do the same thing. I will not do it because the instance is available. But third time, again, you change the AMI ID. So it created one Ubuntu instance and it created one Amazon Linux. This is the tricky part which interviewer was looking for. So what we will do is, just like how we have written the image ID in the loop, we can also write the name in the loop. So what I'm going to do in this loop, I'm slightly going to change it, and I'm going to use this syntax where inside this brackets, what we are trying to do here is, instead of using one variable in the loop, now we are using two variable. And here, instead of just calling item, I will say item.image. Okay. And here I just need to say again exactly the same thing, but instead of Ansible instance, I'll just say item.name. So what now loop will do, whenever it sees item.image, it will replace with this image. And whenever it sees item.name, it will replace with this one. For the first time when you are writing, you might find it little complicated, but as you keep writing it, it will become easy. Okay, now let's delete the instances. I don't remember if I've deleted. So let me just move the state to terminated. Perfect. Refresh. Okay, so the instances got terminated. Perfect. Now let me simply run it all over again. This time, let's again change the instance state, all the states to running, and let's wait for Ansible execution to complete. I am expecting 3 instances to get created. Here, whenever you are writing this code during the interview, you also have to explain about the idempotency feature, because that is the reason why the task was asked. Change the state to running, you will see, okay, manage node 1 is created. Only one got created. Let's see why. So it said manage node 1, manage node 2, and manage node 3 with the AMI IDs. It looks perfect. Maybe it is taking time. We can refresh here actually. My bad. States running. I should have used this refresh button. Anyways, it's okay. It created the second one as well. It will also create the third one. We just need to wait. You can see here what it created: manage node 1, manage node 2, manage node 3, and with these AMI IDs. If this is done, our task 1 is complete. Okay, it is still taking some time. So I just added this field more called tags because it was not taking name. I think this is an open issue with Ansible. So I just added this one more section, exactly the same. Instead of name here, I have added tags, and in the environment, I said item.name. So now if you go to the AWS console, you can see three manage nodes: manage node 1, manage node 2, and manage node 3. So this is what interviewer was expecting you to explain, that when you provide the same AMI ID, because of the Ansible's idempotency nature, it couldn't create three instances. So I have added the tag, and I am using the loop here as well. You can use not just for the tags, you can use loops on any defaults field. It will differ from the existing EC2 instance for Ansible, and it will create a new instance for you. Perfect. Anyways, this did the trick for us using tags environment. Okay, now three instances are created. Our first task is done. As the next step of the task, let's set up passwordless authentication. Passwordless authentication is very simple, straightforward actually. If you go to the Day-2 folder, you will find this file called passwordless authentication. You can do passwordless authentication in two ways. One, you can use the public key private key, the PEM file, using SSH copy ID, or you can just use the password also. But this is most recommended way. If you want to try this, please watch the Day-2 folder, Day-2 video. In this example, I will use the SSH copy ID because this is very popular one. So just copy this command. You will see how simple it is to set up passwordless authentication. Take your terminal, copy this command, SSH copy ID -f will force copying of the PEM file, identity file, and you need to provide the PEM file that you have copied to the EC2 instances. Which EC2 instances? The ones that we created. So these are the three EC2 instances. All of them were created with the same PEM file, Abhi AWS key pair. You should download that PEM file on your machine. I have downloaded it, and I'll just provide downloads. It's in the downloads folder. What is the name of the PEM file? Abhi AWS key pair.pem. Now all that I need to do is just provide EC2 username. Here the first one is Amazon Linux, so the username will be EC2-user @IP address. So this will be my IP address. Perfect. Run this command. Passwordless authentication is set up. Now if I just do SSH to just show you that passwordless authentication is set up, just copy this SSH EC2 user @ the IP address. You will see I got logged in. It's that simple to set up passwordless authentication. Now let's do for the other two as well. So I'll just say Ubuntu @ this one, because it's a Ubuntu instance. Done. You can verify SSH Ubuntu. I'm not even providing the PEM file, but you can see that I have logged in. Last one, copy the IP address. So even if you have 100 instances, you can literally do it in maybe 10-15 minutes. You can use the for loop, and you can even reduce the time. Put the IP addresses in a file and just run the for loop, or use the SSH agent, anything that you'd like to do. Okay, now I have done the passwordless authentication, which is step number 2. Now finally we are left with task 3, that is automate shutdown of Ubuntu instances only. So again there is a condition. So it is little bit tricky, because instead of shutting down the 3 instances, okay, so here we have 3 instances, right, on the AWS console. We should not be shutting down all 3 instances, but execute that only on the Ubuntu instances. So let's see how to do that conditioning in the playbook. Okay, let's go to our Visual Studio Code again. And here what I'm going to do now is I will create one more playbook. You can create that in a different folder also, but just because I'm going to push this to a GitHub repository, I'll put everything under Day-7 folder. Let's call it as EC2 underscore stop.yaml. I need the inventory file because I want to connect to this EC2 instances and run that command. For that, what I'm going to do is inside Day-7 folder, I need a inventory file, inventory.ini. If you want to group the hosts, you can group. I am okay not grouping also, but let me just create a group called all, which is equivalent to not creating any group, and simply copy this IP address, ec2-user@this, followed by ubuntu@ubuntu IP addresses. So this is this one and this is this one. Perfect. Now let's write the playbook file ec2 underscore stop, 3 hyphens, hosts. It should execute on all the Ansible machines. Sorry, I'm first taking all the Ansible hosts. One is I can simply group them. You might be thinking, Abhishek, you can simply group Ubuntu hosts as Ubuntu and run this playbook as, simply here. Perfect. I can definitely do that, and that will solve my purpose. But the requirement is, you don't know which hosts. Let's say it is not this easy where you can group the hosts. You have to execute it on all the hosts in the playbook, but you have to use the when condition. That's why it is given in the tip as well. If you look at the task, use when condition. It is clearly mentioned. So the interviewer wants to understand if you know the when conditioning or not. So hosts as all become true because it's an administrative task where I need elevated privileges. So I'll say become true so that it has the permissions, not running as the EC2 user, but with elevated permissions. Perfect. What is the task? Shutdown Ubuntu instances only. Okay. Assume you don't know which instances or Ubuntu, which instances or EC2 user, that is Amazon Linux. So shut down Ubuntu instances only. If you just write the task like this, Ansible dot built-in dot command, to run any command, you can use Ansible built-in command, just like a shell command, where I'll say sbin shutdown. Sbin shutdown is the command to shut down an instance. -t now, -t now represents that shutdown immediately. You can also read about it. What is the command does? The built-in command module takes the command name followed by the space. Okay. So we have given this command, which will, using SSH, it will connect to your EC2 instances and this command will get executed. But it will run on all 3 instances. To avoid that, in Ansible, just like every programming language has if conditions, Ansible has when condition. Just like if, we will say when Ansible underscore facts. Abhishek, what is this? Just give me a minute. I'll explain. What is this Ansible underscore facts? os.family is equals to Debian. Abhishek, what did you do here? I'll show you very clearly what I have done. Don't worry. But for now, just understand that Abhishek is writing a condition. If this condition is matched, then this command will execute. Perfect. Let's run our playbook and see what is happening. Then I'll explain what is this Ansible facts and everything that I've written. So for that, I will say Ansible playbook followed by -i inventory file followed by EC2 underscore stop.yaml. Now it is failing because it is expecting encrypted key, because in the same folder we have a few files that we have, in the same Ansible root folder, which is this folder inside the Day-7, we have some encrypted files. Ideally, you will write this playbook in a different folder, so you will not have to provide this decrypted key. But because I want to commit this to a GitHub repository, I'm putting this under the same folder. So I'll just pass the vault password file also. Okay, first task got executed. Okay, then the second task also got executed. Let's see, when the second task got executed, did it actually shut down all the instances or only the Ubuntu ones or not? Let's go to the instances. Let's refresh. Okay, all three of them are still running. The Ubuntu ones are running. This is running. Let's see if I have done any typing mistake or something. So in this when condition that I'm writing, I might have done some mistake. Let's see. Okay, so here I said Ansible facts os.family is equals to Debian. This condition did not meet. That's why none of the instances got shut down. But again, Abhishek, what is this condition? So this condition is actually coming from gather facts. Whenever you run gather facts, I always used to tell you, when you run gather facts, which is the first step of the Ansible playbook, Ansible collects all the information from your target machines, which is your managed nodes. I told this multiple times. Let's see what information is it collecting. Because in the when condition, I am using the information which Ansible is collecting from the managed nodes, and I am saying from Ansible facts. If you think that the OS family is Debian, then execute this task. Probably the name that I have provided here is wrong. So to understand that, what we can do is we can see what is in the gather facts. Let's do this. Name, print all the Ansible gathered facts. So here I'll say Ansible dot built-in dot debug. Okay, just say var. I'm just writing a debug command where I am just asking Ansible to print what is in the Ansible facts. So if you want to print any variable or if you want to debug, you can use this method where you will say var Ansible facts. Okay, perfect. And I will just comment this part out because I just want to print the gather facts. I want to show you what's inside the gather facts and if I have done any mistake in the os.family. So let's save it and run. We will see all the facts that Ansible is gathering. You will surprised to see it gathers all this information from the target machine. From each of the machine, it gathers all this information. Again, you don't have to remember any of these. OS family is a very popular one. It's a very popular use case. That's why I know within the Ansible facts, there will be something called OS family. So let's search OS. See, it is OS underscore family. If I just search for OS underscore family, we will see two of them are with Debian. And I want only two of them to be stopped, shut down. So I'll just replace os.family with os underscore family. Let's uncomment this. And if you want, you can remove this or keep it, doesn't matter because we are done with that particular thing. Now, let me run this. OS underscore family is Debian. I hope now it should work. For Amazon Linux, the OS family is Red Hat because it will use the Red Hat one. See clearly, it skipped EC2 underscore user because it uses a CentOS Red Hat flavor. And for the other two, it said changed. Let's see if those two instances will get stopped. We need to wait for a minute because this command will take a minute. Immediately after you execute this command, your instance will not shut down. It will give a grace period of 1 minute. After that, your instances will shut down. Let's see. Yeah, we need to wait. Let's try again. But clearly it said the instruction is executed. You can see on EC2 user, that is Amazon Linux, nothing has changed. But on Ubuntu, there is a change that is made. So Ansible has executed that command. Okay, let's try again. Perfect. So intentionally, I did not stop the recording part here. I just want to show you that it will take 1 minute, but eventually it will stop. So the Ubuntu related machines are stopped. And if you change this type to Red Hat, okay, even this will also get terminated. You can see now if I run, the other two instances, passwordless authentication will fail because we did not use elastic IP addresses, right? We are using free tier instances. Every time the instance is stopped, the IP address gets changed. And also because the instance is stopped, they are not reachable. But this one was reachable. The OS type, OS family is Red Hat. So the command also got executed. After 1 minute, you will see this instance will also shut down. So perfect. This was the video where we have performed 3 tasks. Thank you so much for watching the video. Let me know in the comment section if you have any questions.